Hello, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the Auburn Blitz, here with you from noon to 1 o'clock every day, right here on 105.1 The Lake and Charter Channel 3 in the Lake Martin area on TV, and obviously Facebook Live. Brett Pritchard and Caleb Brooks here with you for the hour. And Caleb, good to see you as always. And Builder's First Source in Auburn, Mortgage Pro there at McKinley team in the Lake Martin area, our corporate partners here on the Auburn Blitz. And obviously we couldn't do our programs without them and all of our great sponsors. We'll be talking about them throughout the show, and we want you to go out and patronize them and see them and use them for all of your needs, whatever it is that particular sponsor does. But Caleb, we'll get it kicked off here on this Tuesday, talking about a recap of Auburn Southern Miss. Gus Malzahn press conference going on right now, so not able to really listen in what he said, but have already seen what Chip Lindsey and Coach Steele said yesterday and the day before, and about the game. And really, you look at it from a standpoint of stats, it's not a pretty win, but Auburn improves to 4-1. They beat Southern Miss 24-13. You don't know how the 3-hour rain delay impacted the guys. I mean, you played football, Caleb. You know, you go in there and you it's hard to regenerate an energy, especially when you're playing a lesser than. And I'm not using excuses. I'm going in preferencing this, but there is something to be said. I heard what the players said. They went in there and sat for almost 3 hours and never took their pads off, and and then you got to get back up to go out there and play and you go out there and there's nobody in the stands.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough deal for people that have never played before and don't understand that. You go out, your body gets going, you're in the middle of the game, then all of a sudden you go sit for 3 hours, and then you're told to come back and get refocused again to go out and play. You know who you're playing against, which is Southern Miss team that looked like early was going to struggle to score on Auburn, and they did struggle to score on Auburn. And the players knew that, and they went into the locker room, and they could see that. So it's just hard when you walk in. You kind of know at that point that we're going to be able to win this game. Mm-hmm. And then you have to go back and get mentally prepared again. So, I mean, it's not an easy thing. And then you're out on a slippery field. I mean, I know that they have a great grounds crew at Auburn, and I'm sure the field drains well, but it's still, as much as it rained, when you miss for 3 hours, that's a lot of water on that surface, and it's not turf out there. So slippery surface, it's just tough to go out there and get back mentally prepared to go and play the rest of that game. Yeah,
I think they make a good point. Now let's get out of that and talk about when it got back to game situations. You know, I've always been told by coaches, and you probably have as well, it's not about who's across from you. It's not about the conditions. It's about how you play. It's about how you get refocused. And the offensive line for Auburn is obviously struggling right now. And they had a couple guys go down, and Jack Driscoll and Prince Tega. Both of them were at practice yesterday. I don't know to what capacity. I think Coach Malzahn probably is alluding to that right now. As we talk, maybe we can get some updates on that. Boobie Whitlow also went down, and you can tell that affected the running game tremendously. So some things to work on, but really, really odd that Auburn moved up 2 spots to number 8. It doesn't feel like a number 8 team right now. I told Gary Harris this morning on his show that, you know, the defense is really playing lights out. They're one of the best. I think they're ranked 3rd overall in the country in total defense right now. But the offense on the flip side is so anemic right now that you don't feel confident that this is a strong number 8 team. And I look down outside of Alabama, okay, I think there's a lot – everybody's got some type of flaw. I mean, you look at Georgia – they struggled with Tennessee for a while. I mean, I know they ended up winning, 38-12, but
it was 24-12 at one point.
That's exactly right.
And they were up 24-0.
And they were in Georgia. Yeah. And Tennessee, I'll give them credit. They didn't roll over, and like they have been rolling over. Missouri, if they don't have self-inflicted wounds, probably beat Georgia 2 weeks ago.
And ran for 180 yards.
That's right. You know, and I know Auburn's performance against Arkansas wasn't stellar, but they did dominate them defensively, and they did score 24 points. Arkansas, if they don't give up the opening kickoff to Texas A&M, that game's tied in the 4th quarter. So I think we all look around the country, and we're seeing Oklahoma team that had to go to overtime with Army, You saw a Virginia Tech team that went on the road to, I still don't know why, to Old Dominion and got beat 2 touchdowns.
You look at Ohio State, and they could have 2 losses right now.
Very easily could have 2 losses. I mean, so there is not a team out there outside Alabama, and unfortunately, that's just the way it is, that you have a feeling that, man, you know, we've got all 3 phases put together. I think Auburn's really gotten better on special teams this year from last year. It's a flip of the script there, but the offense has regressed, and that's what puts butts in seats, and that's where the dynamic. That's why Alabama is scoring 50. They're making scoring 50 points look like that's what everybody does and goes out. And you guys have maybe the best quarterback that you've ever had in the school's history, and that's saying a lot with Joe Namath and those kind of guys like that. But you have a quarterback in Tua that is doing things, and he'll probably tell you there's going to be a game he goes out there and maybe somebody figures out how to get pressure or whatever, and he's got to figure out a way to develop and get around that. He's still a young kid, but right now he's playing lights out. And I think you even said it about Alabama last week, Caleb, that, you know, we're a linebacker away here and there from being in trouble again defensively. And, you know, and Alabama giving up yards on the ground has not been a positive. When you're beating everybody like a drum, it's hard to find the things that you need to work on. But even Alabama has things that they can tighten up.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, I mean, like you just said, Alabama is one linebacker away. When Dylan Moses went down against Texas A&M, people were holding their breath. They're not deep at that position. And Saban talked about it at the beginning of the year, that one of the reasons they went with Tua at quarterback was because they felt like this team was going to have to score points to win games. So, you know, you can tell Alabama's not as elite defensively, but that, to me, also has to do with the way that offense is played now as well. I think that offenses are now built to take advantage of what defenses are able to do.
They are.
You know, they're just getting better and better and better every year. You're seeing kids coming up playing in these type of systems in high school now, whereas before you had kids playing in I formations, all that, and then having to come into college and playing the spread. But really, I mean, you're right. A lot of teams have stuff to work on. It's not just Auburn. You know, Auburn fans get frustrated with Auburn. I see it on Twitter and stuff. And like you said, their special teams has really improved. You know, Carlson's missed a few field goals, but you're going to miss them 54? When you're kicking 54-yard field goals. That's just the way it – I mean, you know, his brother missed 54-yard field goals. That's not automatic. NFL kickers miss 54-yard field goals.
Daniel figured that out real quick.
Exactly.
You miss enough of them, you'll get cut from one week to the next.
Which I've said before was wrong. Should not have gotten cut. They spent a 5th-round draft pick on them and cut them.
I know that. Well, I mean, in fairness, but kickers have that mantra, man, in the NFL. If you don't get it done, you know, I think Bill Parcells, my dad's always said he was the world's worst. He'd cut you before you left the field if you didn't do what you need to do on that particular day. Getting things started, kind of just going around the conference and talking about different things right now before we dive into the Auburn Southern Miss game, and then leading up to Mississippi State coming up. I think that's where we're going to focus more today, starting with the rest of the week, is Auburn's got a tough task, even though Mississippi State scored all of 13 points in their last 2 losses in the SEC. You know, it's still going to be a tough environment, and you got 2 offenses that are struggling and 2 good defenses. So we'll see how it plays out. But Jeffrey said a little update on the Malzahn press conference. He said the way Malzahn approached it at the press conference, I have a feeling at least 2 of the 3 out. I could be wrong, but he usually likes to stall the news when it's likely to be bad in order for the opponent, or in order that the opponent can't fully prepare for it. So, yeah, I mean, Gus ain't going to give you much. He never has.
But you got to really hope that Booby's not one of those guys that's out.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's going to really affect Auburn.
I'll be honest with you. Calvin Ashley came in place of Driscoll. I thought, now it was in the 4th quarter and it was later, but, you know, this guy was a 5-star out of Maryland. He was probably the top tackle in the country coming out. And Andy's got some notes here on some things on recruiting classes, offensive line recruiting classes over the past years. You know, you look at the way he played in that game, that's what Auburn's been waiting on from him. I think he actually was the number 6 overall tackle in the country, a 5-star, the number 26 overall player coming out that year in 2017. You got to find a way to get that guy on the field, Caleb.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason he was 5 stars. There was a reason he was the number 6 tackle in all of the United States. this has gotten to be a development issue with Auburn on the offensive line.
Yeah, but I'm going to say this now. Auburn's got a great offensive line coach and Coach Hand.
Yeah.
And he does.
Well, he left. It's J.B. Grimes.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
but beforehand.
Well, he's the one that recruited him. He's the one that recruited him.
And you could tell with their offensive line last year how good he was. Now, I forgot that he left, but
he had Braden Smith and he had those guys. And, I had somebody tell me yesterday that the physicality of Auburn under Herb Hand is a lot different than what they're seeing out of J.B. Grimes this year. Malzahn goes back to get J.B. Grimes to come back and coach. And, there's a lot of Auburn people that like J.B. Grimes before he left. This is what he's been given. So I know you lose a Braden Smith and you lose a center that was pretty doggone good, and you having to replace some of these players, and right now it just ain't gelled.
Well, and it takes time. People don't understand that with the offensive line. It just takes time to gel. It takes time to communicate the right way. It takes time. I mean, you've got to know what the guy beside you is going to do all the time, and so it takes time. Auburn lost a lot of linemen. I mean, they just did, and they lost a lot of good offensive linemen. And you don't just throw people in there and replace that. I mean, it's not that easy.
Yeah, I've got something. We'll keep it going during the Facebook break. Stay tuned. More of the Auburn Blitz coming your way right after this. Here's my question, and all the people commenting out there. And John said Hand wasn't effective, and a lot of people said he wasn't. You look at his stats moving around the country. He struggled, and Penn State's offensive line had gotten worse, and then a lot of people felt like Auburn maybe should have been better at the end of the year. But here's the deal. Why is it taking Auburn 4 games every year to get something going on the offensive line? And we're 5 games in, and we still ain't got this figured out.
No, this was the same thing last year. I mean, they struggled against Mercer earlier in the year, kind of the same way they struggled with Southern Miss this year. And then things kind of got rolling. So you just got to hope as an Auburn fan that's what's going to happen. And this weekend's a good weekend to start. Now, Mississippi State has a good defense, but Auburn's going to be able to move the ball, and I think where Auburn's going to win the game this weekend is field position.
Well, I'm going to tell you, this is how important this game is on Saturday for both teams. I think Mississippi State may already be out of the picture anyway. But Auburn, and I tell you, I don't care about Mississippi State. If they lose this game, they're out of contention pretty much for everything. So now when you take them out midway through the season, how's the mental – where's the mental state of this team?
Yeah, because you still got to play Texas A&M. You still got to go to Georgia, and you still got to go to Alabama.
That's exactly right. And you
got to go to Ole Miss. And I know Ole Miss ain't great, but with Auburn struggling the way they are
that's actually the medicine they need is a struggling offense. So it says, I was rewatching the Arkansas game, noticed for a couple instances so far where the D-line twisted on the twist, the tackle and guard have to communicate and switch. At least one of those times, the guard was slow to pick up the switch and allow pressure.
Yeah, and I mean, that is an issue. I mean, it's about communicating switches. It's about communicating blitz pickups. And right now, from what I can tell watching Auburn, that's where they're struggling is communicating as a group. And it starts with the center. And,
it does. And then they got Brahms up there.
And now they've already had to replace one, and they're switching out center. So, obviously, there's some communication issues. There is some issues there. That's what's causing a lot of issues up front for them.
Peach has said only bowl game Malzahn's won the Birmingham Bowl. I mean, exactly. And he also said that Hand's negative plays were really bad. And so, when we had negative plays, they were bad. And John,
I'm going to tell you this, though. Cole Kublik speaks really, really high on Hand. I mean, he thinks that he does a really good job. So
Andy broke down.
Sometimes it's not always the coaches either.
Well,
sometimes it's up to the players to go out and perform the way that they're supposed to. I
think you're right. I mean, it's
up to them to go out and communicate.
It's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag, and right now, it's just one of those situations where that if you could shore up that line, then you would immediately put Auburn up there in the top 5 in the country as a contender.
Especially when you look at that defense.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the defense ain't an issue.
If Auburn were averaging like they normally average, about 30 points a game.
Well, number 1, they'd be undefeated right now.
Oh, there's no doubt.
They'd be in the top 5.
Exactly.
I'd have them over Ohio State. I'd have them at number 3.
If they were
undefeated right now and were looking good on offense, they'd be the number 3 team in the country behind Alabama and Georgia.
If they could it's just so frustrating, man. For years, Auburn was scoring all these points and couldn't stop nobody. Now they stop everybody and they can't score. I mean, how can you put both together?
Well, then the question for people on Facebook, when you look at Auburn when Gus Malzahn's had success, and they had success last year with Stidham, But there was a
but
lot
they had
of
a great
factors
running
that
back
went
in the
exactly.
backfield with them. So
otherwise, when he's had success, it's been with a guy like Cam Newton or Nick Marshall that can run the football.
That's right. Well,
they don't have a guy that can do
that's
that
what Gary brought that up this morning. And he said that the bottom line is that Auburn either with a passing quarterback's got to have a dynamic running back or they got to have a dual threat guy.
Yeah. And you can tell Malzahn, he ain't using a passing quarterback the right way. When you're not taking deep shots, all you're doing is throwing
dinks and dives stuff.
Exactly. You won't throw the slant route for some reason, which that's where they killed LSU when they got rolling, was with the slant. So, a lot of it is play calling. It's the way you can tell he's not used to having a guy that can throw the football around.
How about these apples? The guy that was out, I'll bring this up on the – I've got some news for everybody out there, and this is interesting. I found out this weekend. Welcome back, everyone, to the Auburn Blitz here on this Tuesday. Builders First Source Mortgage Pro there at McKinley Team, our corporate partners. This segment brought to you by Cheeseburger. And as Andy said yesterday, quoting Pulp Fiction, that is a tasty burger. And that's Jules said that. And any burger you choose at Cheeseburger is going to be a tasty burger. All right. I found out this weekend that in the Auburn LSU game, the back judge that threw the penalty flags for the interference, is an Auburn fan. He lives in Alabama. I'm not going to say what city he lives in, but I know somebody that knows him and that goes to church with this man and has grown up an Auburn fan his whole life, and he threw two flags. Not that just shows you that you don't have. As an official, David Smith is a head official and he played quarterback at Alabama. You got to take the glasses off. You enter into an oath that you're going to do it right, but that just shows you right there that. Man,
that's the same way as Kirk Herbstreit doing the Ohio State game
Saturday
night. And I thought anytime he calls Ohio State games, he does a good job of not showing any bias.
He played quarterback there.
And you have to do that as an official. You can't go out there and officiate a game. I'm surprised they put an Auburn fan out there for Auburn game.
That's exactly right. But I guess you don't know where the allegiance is. But I don't know I know there's rules about graduation and where you graduated from and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, it's kind of blew my mind a little bit. But, obviously it didn't matter.
No, obviously it didn't.
If it was bang, bang, or even close to being thought of that might be controversial, he went ahead and slung the flag out there anyway. But anyway, you look back, and let's talk about some of these offensive line recruiting classes. We're talking about the offensive line, and we'll go back and look at 2014 with Braden Smith in there. They had the number 6 offensive line class in the country, number 4 in the conference, with Xavier Dampier, Braden Smith, being 2 offensive linemen that they were able to secure that year. In 2015, they had the number 8 class in the country, number 5 in the conference. Prince Tega was part of that. Marquell Harrell was part of that. Tyler Carr, who's not on the team anymore, was part of that. Caleb Kim, Bailey Sharp, Mike Horton. Okay, Mike Horton probably may be the better one of all of those guys. Caleb Kim tried it at center this year, didn't work. Tyler Carr's gone. Marquell Harrell's playing. Prince Tega's playing. He's hurt. Bailey Sharp's still on the team. So Tega, Harrell, Carr, and Kim, all 4 stars. Mike Horton's probably the best of all of them, and he was a 3-star. So you flip over to 2016, and Broderius Ham was a 3-star. Prince Salmons, a 4-star. And then Tashawn Manning, 3-star. Now, some of those guys battled some sicknesses and some things like that were beyond their control, but that was the number 9 offensive line class in the country. The 2018 offensive line class was number 12 in the country. Jaleel Irvin and Cameron Stutz. And this is where people are starting to wonder about things, Caleb, is the offensive line classes, the trend here is downward. Where are the offensive linemen? Right now, 19 class, you got a 4-star in Keandre Jones and a 3-star in Justin Osborne. But you got 2 offensive linemen right now. And to me, what you need to be looking for are offensive linemen to come in, because what you got right now obviously ain't good enough. That should be the focus. Auburn's got a highly ranked class right now, but they're missing the boat here for some reason on offensive line classes. The best one they've had was back in 2014 with Braden Smith and Xavier Dampier. Now, you look at the 17 class, it was also ranked 4th in the conference with Calvin Ashley and Nick Brahms. Calvin Ashley, a 5-star, Nick Brahms, a 4-star. But your thoughts on the offensive line classes here as we've run them down over the last 6 years?
Well, yeah. I mean, like you said, you can tell it's a downward trend. You're not seeing the 5-stars and really the 4-stars here in the recent classes that you were seeing here in these earlier classes, and now you're kind of seeing the effects of that right now with who you have. And,
that's right.
You know, when you're struggling on the offensive line the way Auburn is, to me, that's where you have to make that a point of emphasis to go out and tell guys, look, we're struggling. You have a chance to come in and play immediately right now if you're able to come in and earn a spot, because we're looking for guys. And, you know, right now that's pretty much – I mean, that's where it starts for Auburn. It's where it's always started for Auburn under Gus Malzahn, because Auburn wants to run the football.
And I don't mean to bash a kid, and I'm not going to. Jeffrey, and he said Trox was part of the 17 class, and he was highly ranked too. But they sent him out there last week and pulled him immediately. So, and I've seen him at times in other situations, and I've been the one on this program that dated all the way back to the bowl game last year that I had questions about Austin Troxell being able to play at this level. Graduate transfers, had one in 17 and 18. Casey Dunn was center last year, came from Jacksonville State. Jack Driscoll came from UMass. Both of those guys end up starting, you know, on this offensive line. So, you know, this offensive line for the last couple of years has been piecemeal. You know, there's been some really good guys up there like a Braden Smith, and then you also got some guys that you're having to plug in because the guys you recruited didn't work out, Caleb. And that's, you know, maybe it's part on them, but maybe it's part on development. I don't know what the answer is. But right now, in Gus Malzahn's offense, the weak link is the offensive line. And when you're weak up front, you're going to be weak overall. It starts there, and it creates –
especially in the SEC, that's where it starts.
Creates uncertainty with your quarterback. Can't run the football. I mean, Kerryon Johnson, we're finding out more and more as we watch every pro game go by with Detroit, how really good he was.
And he was.
I mean, he was a phenomenal player. And
I'm going to tell you, he surprised me. I mean, he did. You know, you remember we watched him at the Super 7.
Madison Academy.
And I think he had, 7 touches and 5 touchdowns day that we saw him. And I thought he would be good. I never thought he'd be this
I don't think anybody thought he'd be to what he was.
And, I mean, now you see him, he's in the NFL just running guys over.
Well, it's funny to think that you say that right there, because you know what his knock was coming into Auburn? Is he physical enough to run the football? Well, you know, we know he's quick and he's agile, but is he, you know, and he suffered some injuries early in his career.
Yeah.
And he fought through them, and everybody was starting to begin to think that he might not be as tough as he needs to shoot.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. You can't question his toughness after the hit he took from Ronnie Harrison at the goal line.
And then got back up
and then came back and scored, and then came back in the game and then played the next week against Georgia. Now, obviously the effects, you know, came into play against Georgia. He wasn't the same player, but that's to be expected when you have to play Georgia. Then you get a cupcake, and then you get Alabama, and then have to turn around and play Georgia again. Those are two teams that played in the national championship. So
tough, and he could have sat out the bowl game, chose to play in that too. So another break coming your way. Stay tuned. More of the Auburn Blitz right after this. It's possible in 2 years that the 2017 class is responsible for 3 of the starters. Possible. Could be possible. We'll see.
I guess I haven't watched Troxell enough. I
don't think he can do it.
I remember seeing him at Madison Academy, and
he was
what, a 10th grader and like 6'6".
Yeah.
I wonder where that Madison Academy and Auburn connection comes from, because they've got Malik Miller.
I know. Well, Malik Miller came because of Kerryon.
But I thought Malik Miller would play.
He looked pretty good. I mean, I did too.
If Booby Whitlow's out this week, it's going to –
I think this is Luke that said Troxell had a lot of injuries too. It's on the Sports Blitz one. But, I mean, he has.
Hey, look, and that does matter.
I mean,
it does. You know, you can have surgeries, you can have whatever, but you're never going to be 100% the same.
No.
And, you know, we don't know. There may be some guys dealing with injuries that they can play with right now. But
that's right.
I mean, you know, my senior year, I played with turf toe the whole year.
Yeah.
And it sucked.
And that sucked.
So, I mean, there's stuff that you can play through, but it's still, I mean, Matt Wilson for Alabama right now is playing with a broken foot. And it's one that they said you can't injure it anymore. but you're going to have surgery after the year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's playing through that, but you can tell when you watch him run around, he's not the same player.
Yeah, of course not. Well, when you have something that's hindering you, you're not going to play.
Exactly.
You're not going to ever be 100%. So, you know, the coach from Madison Academy has been gone for a few years.
Well,
but Deshaun Davis, 10 tackles, Darrell Williams. Auburn's got some good linebackers.
Yeah. And, you know, people are getting frustrated. Like, the rain delay, if you think that didn't have an effect this past weekend.
I mean, I think it had an effect on the overall score because I think Auburn probably would have had 28 or 31 points at halftime. And they would have – but, you know, I don't know. I mean, well, they probably wouldn't have had that much because it was, 4 minutes to go before halftime when the rain started. But, I think it would have it did affect the overall outcome of the game because, look, when the stands empty out, Southern Miss comes out. But really, be honest with you, I watched Southern Miss's body language, and they weren't. They looked like they wanted to go home, too. I mean, it's just like,
I sat through rain delays in baseball in college, and it's tough. I mean, we went to Wallace-Hansville and sat through a 3-hour delay one time where we started the first 2 innings of the game, sat through a 3-hour delay, and it was hard.
Yep.
You want to just leave.
That's exactly right. Welcome back, everyone, to the Auburn Blitz here on this Tuesday, presented by Builders First Source and Mortgage Pro. This segment brought to you by Lake Martin Building Supply. So, again, we want to thank Lake Martin Building Supply right here in the Dayville, Alexander City, Lake Martin area, Tallapoosa County. For all your building supply needs in this area, check out Lake Martin Building Supply. And let's look at some of the superlatives from this past Saturday, and we'll flash forward to Mississippi State coming up, which Auburn is a 3-point favorite in that game on the road. I think Auburn's outscored Mississippi State 87-24 the last two games. So I don't know that that'll be the case this Saturday, but we'll see. But you look at Auburn's superlatives, we'll start on the defensive side of the ball. Deshaun Davis had 10 tackles, 2 for loss. Darrell Williams had 9 tackles, 2.5 for loss. Igbenogany had 5 tackles. Jordan Peters had 5. Denson had 4. Marlon Davidson had 4, and he had half a sack and half of a tackle for loss. So Auburn's knock on defense, if we're going to sit here and be critical of everything, Auburn's knock on defense, I think, is pass rush. Not being able to really get back there and pressure the quarterback as much as they would like to. Now, again, it's hard to – you're grasping for straws over here where the defense is shutting everybody down, and I think is ranked 3rd overall in the country right now, Caleb. So you're grasping for straws. But, look, like everything, you try to improve on your weak areas. And if there's an area where Auburn can improve, and definitely getting ready for Alabama later in the season, who likes to throw the football, obviously now has turned into a totally different offense that would rather throw it than run it, then you got to figure out a way to put some pressure on him and force him out of his comfort zone.
Yeah, that is the knock on Auburn, but it's not really a big knock, is the pass rush. I mean, you can get upset about it. I think pass coverage is another thing, but a pass rush, pass coverage. So they kind of go hand in hand there. But otherwise, there's nothing that you can really say bad about Auburn's defense. It's, like you said, number 3 in the country, and they're only going to improve as the year goes on. And they're going to face a team this weekend in Mississippi State who hasn't been able to move the ball much, and that's against 2 defenses who are not near as good as what Auburn's going to be putting out there on Saturday. So, I do expect it to be a low-scoring game Saturday. Mississippi State's defense is good, too.
Yeah, I said 21-20 Auburn. Gary made me make
I don't even know if it'll be that much.
He made me make up. I hope it's not 3-2. And he
I
brought
don't know if it'll be 3-2.
I know, but I still tell him that everybody – I told him, I had him laughing this morning. I said, well, Auburn scored all 5 points in that game. We held in the end zone and got a safety. But anyway, we got some comments coming in. I want to read some of these. Jeffrey said the offense had a little momentum. They probably score on that drive, go up 21, get 21 instead of 14. The worst thing for a struggling offense is to kill any momentum. Stephen makes a comment here. It says it takes time for offensive line to develop. He said, let that resonate. He's got that in quotes. And then he comes back and says, really? The offensive line must be the first thing to develop before anything behind the line can be productive. What makes Auburn's offensive line so special? It's no different than any other offensive line anywhere else, and I see offensive lines functioning on many other teams elsewhere, maybe personnel or maybe coaching, but offensive line must be the main priority for an offense to produce. Point of attack, dominance, and pass protection are a must. I mean, can't say it any better than that.
Yeah, but he's right. But there's other offensive lines in the country that didn't lose what Auburn lost last year as well, and that matters. I mean, it just you go back 2012 Alabama, that offensive line they had. Remember DJ Fluker, Chance Warmack, Barrett Jones, Juanjo. Those guys are playing the NFL. When they lost those, they weren't near as good in 2013.
Yeah.
They struggled running the football at the beginning of 2013 because when you replace those type of guys, which is basically what Auburn replaced, they replaced 3 really, really good offensive linemen from last year's team, and you're replacing your running back who is playing in the NFL and maybe one of the better running backs in the NFL right now. So when you combine all that, there's a reason that they're struggling the way they are. And another thing is now, when your offensive line struggling the way they are, sometimes it's up to the play callers to call plays to help them out. And Auburn's not really doing that, in my opinion, as well.
I think that's a knock, too, is are you generating offense around where your deficiencies are? Are you trying to help create some situations? And, I thought Andy and Coach Hines talked about it yesterday on the show. Jarrett Stidham's got to step up. Look, man, you're going to get hit, okay? It's going to happen, especially if you have long routes developed. Your line's not going to give you 10 seconds. So you got to step. I thought he made a good throw downfield early in the game where he took a hard lick when he threw it to Seth Williams. He took a shot, but he stepped up, made the throw, took the hit. Auburn scored a touchdown. That's what he's going to have to do if this offense is going to be successful.
No, there's no doubt. And, I think that using Seth Williams and using Darius Slayton downfield is something that Auburn's going to have to do to be successful on offense, and it's something that you haven't really seen enough of.
Yeah, I think one of the concerns, going back to even what you said, is that, and Peaches says, but Arkansas and Southern Miss with a question mark.
Arkansas's front's pretty good, though.
Yeah, Southern Miss defensively was averaging about half a sack a game and half a tackle for loss, and they got 3 sacks against Auburn, and I can't remember how many tackles for loss. And I think that's one of the things that's kind of unnerving is that Southern Miss had played Rice and they played some teams like that and weren't able to get in the backfield, but they were able to get in the backfield against Auburn. So I think that was a little bit of concern for some Auburn fans there. Peaches says, are Gus and Chip being too stubborn with trying to get the run game going? Can they go to more of a quick passing game?
I think that's a good point. I think they are trying to be a little stubborn. Sometimes you have to throw the football to set up the run.
That's right.
And, Malzahn's been built off running the ball to set up the pass, set up play-action pass, but that just doesn't seem to be the way that this team is built right now. Maybe you have to flip the
script, and if you continue to be stubborn.
Well, that would be like Alabama right now trying to run the football 50 times a game instead of doing what their strength is, which is throwing the football right now.
That's right.
I mean, it's the same exact thing. So I can kind of agree with him on that one. I think they are being a little bit stubborn with the way that they're calling plays.
I'm with you. And I think a lot of people get upset at the game. You can hear it. I hear it with the same old thing over and over and over and over and over with the same result. I mean, if you're finally getting through and you're getting a different result, that's one thing. But when you continue to be the same 3-and-out type offense with the same type of plays, some point in time, people the cheers turn to jeers.
Yeah. And the one thing that would frustrate me as an Auburn fan is when you go back to the LSU game, when they had their most success was when they sped it up. They started throwing slants.
Auburn's not fast anymore either.
Yeah, they're not.
They don't run.
He keeps using the excuse, "Well, you got to get first downs, be fast." No, you don't. You don't. If you come out and let's say you're on a first down play,
that's what he's already made his mind up that's the way it's got to be. That's again being stubborn.
Yeah.
It's again saying that I can't do this unless this happens because this is always how I've done it.
You can't let other things dictate the way that you're going to do things.
Well, Gus Malzahn doesn't have Trey Mason or Kerryon Johnson this year. Let's just be honest about it. Boobie Whitlow could maybe form into that guy, but he's not that guy right now.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna jump on the bandwagon with Coach Hines and some other people. What's wrong with C.J. Talbert playing some? From Dayville High School. He's been the MVP of the A-Day game the last 2 years. Why ain't he getting a shot in this thing?
No,
because he's a walk-on and you don't want to put a guy out there and have him tear it up, over your scholarship players. I mean, give me a break, man.
Sometimes that happens.
It just happens.
Baker Mayfield was a walk-on.
That's exactly right. What didn't work out too bad for him, did it?
Number 1 overall pick.
Number 1 overall pick, and went to the playoffs last year, and doing pretty good for the Browns.
And you know, when you're at the state that Auburn is in their run game right now with the running backs that they have, and really the only one that's been consistent producing is Boobie Whitlow. If he's out, you got to give him a chance.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, you have to find some way to get something going in the run game, and if the other guys ain't doing it, then you got to give someone else an opportunity.
We'll go around the conference, recap some things, talk about Auburn, Mississippi State coming up this Saturday at night in Starkville. I mean, Mississippi State's struggling. They're a wounded animal. They're desperate for a win. Stay tuned. More of the Auburn Blitz right after this.
$3.29. Jeez.
I don't think that's quite right.
No. What is today, October 2nd?
Yeah. We're a little off there on the months, but it's okay. I don't think that's the issue. Hastings has done all right. Tucker Brown sees a lot of time, and he was a walk-on. Well, there's a reason C.J. Talbert ain't playing. I don't know what it is, and maybe it's not as big a deal in the wide receiver core of sticking a walk-on out there than it is a running back, because that's kind of what Gus Malzahn's known for. But I mean, why can he do – I mean, I know I can already foresee all the comebacks on Facebook, so I'm really not even going to dive into it. I mean, I know the A-Day game isn't the same as playing, but, I mean, come on, man. Give the kid – right now, this is wide open, in my opinion, back there. Why not put him in there and see what he can do?
Yeah.
Why didn't you put him in there against Arkansas?
I want to know why does Gus Malzahn get stuck on running one guy and running him until his legs fall off? I don't really get that. I mean, you don't give Cam Martin any carries. All of a sudden, Boobie gets hurt and he gets 24 carries for 90 yards this weekend. But if Boobie would have never gotten hurt, he'd have maybe ended the day with 4 carries. Yeah. That don't make sense. When you're going through a long season the way they're going to have to, you've got to keep guys fresh. You saw that with Kerryon last year.
That's right.
He got worn down by the end of the year. You can't sit there and just run him. You know, a guy like Derrick Henry, that's an anomaly. You don't see that come around where a guy gets better and better the more they carry it. A lot of guys, they just get worn down.
Auburn had a back in the 80s that did that, and it's Stacey Danley. He got better in the fourth. He was stronger in the fourth quarter than he was in the first quarter. And it was that way every single week. And you just couldn't give him the ball enough in the fourth quarter because everybody else looked like they were.
You think Reggie Bush would have been as good without Lindell White?
No. Wouldn't have.
You got to have both of them. You got to be able to keep both of them fresh. When you're just running one guy into the dirt, I mean, it's hard for a guy to sustain that kind of success throughout the whole entire season. I don't understand. That's one of my biggest knocks on Gus Malzahn is it's like he's scared to replace a guy.
Yep. Yeah, hopefully there's a reason they're making millions of dollars every year. Each year.
I'm starting to question it a lot now.
Yep.
After watching the play call that James Franklin came up with the other night.
Man.
You got a guy that has a chance to win the Heisman, and you don't put the ball. Saquon Barkley's not back there running the football for you no more.
That's right. He's not back there anymore.
You know, hey, if that would have been Saquon Barkley and they'd have tackled him in the backfield, I'd have said, okay, you're giving it to that guy who's a number 2 overall pick.
Jeffrey, I have people tell me that are at practice all the time that they don't understand. Things don't translate from practice to the game with Coach Malzahn. I understand what you're saying, but there's a lot of that I have told to me firsthand that they do one thing in practice and then come out and do something totally different in the game, and it makes no sense. And so I don't have an answer for that either. I'm not saying that he's blind to some of those things, and obviously it's his team, and he makes calls on what he thinks is best. And, you know, I know we just talk about a lot of things and a lot of deficiencies of guys that, well, maybe they can't do this or maybe they can't do that. Well, you know, Gus is very adamant on players having key roles in the offense. I mean, we all know when Eli Stove comes in the game, it's a speed sweep. We all know that when Asa Martin comes in the game, it's probably going to be a wheel route. I mean, so, you know, why not throw C.J. Talbert in the mix of having his little bubble of what he can do real well and putting him in for whatever that is? I mean, I just don't think mean, I think the kid deserves a shot. He shows out in the A-Day game every year. And, again, I know it's the A-Day game, but welcome back, everyone, to the Auburn Blitz here. Builders First Source and Mortgage Pro there at McKinley team, our corporate partners here. This segment brought your way by EnviroCare for all your pest needs. I had EnviroCare at my house this past week and installed the termite traps all the way around the house because, you know what, you live in the South and you don't want to take any chances. So EnviroCare taking care of my house. They need to take care of yours as well. SEC games are this past week. We'll run through them real quick. Georgia over Tennessee, 38-12. You know, a little bit of deceiving score there because I thought that Georgia kind of hit a lull there in the middle of the game. And Tennessee had a little bit of momentum. They ended up pulling away, but this Tennessee team did show that they weren't going to roll over and just get mauled. I mean, I know 38-12 is still a blowout, but
well, especially considering all that they kind of went through the past week with the talk of if the guy quit or not, during the game. So, they're just not good enough to play with the five that they're about to play.
That's right.
They're just not good enough to play with those teams.
They just don't have the
I don't know if they're good enough to play with any of the teams they play in the SEC. I can easily see 0-8 in the SEC this year.
And I think Andy
Vandy's the only game.
Yeah, and that's shoot. I mean, Vanderbilt may have better players than them right now.
Yeah.
LSU and Ole Miss can't stop anybody, man. I mean, it's just
if you go at 45 LSU, you can't stop nobody.
Yeah, you can't. You
can't
stop anybody. Kentucky, man, maybe the surprise. I mean, look, I know they got to go to Texas A&M, but
if they win
5 years
week,
in a row, they've beaten South Carolina. 5
years,
row.
yeah, 5 years.
Good
if
Lord,
they win
man.
this week, I'm 100% bought in on Kentucky. But they've started off a few seasons like this: 4-1, 5-0, and then they've ended them 6-6, 5-7.
Here's the stretch. I mean, everybody can look back and and see where they've had their Achilles, and it's been the second half of the season. Peaches says, "How far do you think Kentucky goes if they beat A&M and Georgia?" Man,
if they beat A&M and Georgia, they're going undefeated.
They're going to the SEC championship game too. And I mean, let's be honest about it. When they play Alabama, if Alabama makes it there, which if things stay the course, they will. I mean, they'll lose to them, but there'll be one game, one loss Kentucky team. We ain't talking about basketball. We talking about one loss.
And that's going to get it. Let's say, all right, what if Kentucky beats Georgia, goes undefeated? Georgia's only loss is Kentucky. Kentucky and Alabama meet undefeated. Alabama beats Kentucky. Are we looking at 3 SEC teams maybe getting in?
What about, and then flip the script, and what if Kentucky is the magician this year and beats Alabama in the SEC championship game? What are you talking about? Just crumble it all up and throw it away. I mean, Auburn and Alabama dream of making the Final Four. Let's be honest about it. And what it'd be like. Well, Kentucky fans are they're like sniffing Atlanta right now. They're like, we can smell it a little bit.
We talk about it all the time, but it's the same situations in just different sports. Alabama and Auburn basketball and Kentucky in football.
I mean, and they're right there.
And right now, they're kind of where Alabama and Auburn are at in basketball right now, where they're getting better and people are getting excited about it.
Kind of crazy. It's taking March Stoops. And it takes a little longer in football because you got to have more players. You got to have more, but I mean, March Stoops, man.
Guy can coach.
He can, dude. And Kentucky, at this point in time, no matter what happens, they ought to say, give that man a lifetime contract.
You can stay as long as you want to.
We don't have to start over again up here. In the Boring Bowl, Florida beat Mississippi State 13-6. And, Florida had 357 total yards of offense, but just couldn't find points against Mississippi State. That's the kind of team Mississippi State is. They're stubborn. They're good defensively. They may give up yards, but they're real stingy around the goal line. And Florida was able to do enough to win that game. But
me and Andy talked about it on Sports Blitz. We've talked about it on here. Mississippi State, early in the year, they had success, but they were going to face teams that were going to make Nick Fitzgerald beat them with his arm. And he just hadn't been able to do that the last 2 weeks. And you're going to see the same with Auburn this week. They're going to crowd the box. People are playing him the same way people play Jalen Hurts. And you're seeing pretty much the same results.
Well, Auburn has shut Nick Fitzgerald down the last 2 years because they're like,
and they'll do it again.
And So he's
until he can hit some people over the top and hit the deep ball. This is what you're going to get with their offense.
That's exactly right. A&M takes it to the house on the opening kickoff against Arkansas, and outside of that, they scored 17 points the rest of the game, and Arkansas matched them, 17 points on their side. So the difference was that kickoff return.
I think A&M may have had a little bit of they played Alabama the week before. You're playing Arkansas, who you saw how bad they were, and then they got Kentucky coming up.
Kentucky,
so number one, it's a trap game, and number two, I think they jumped up on them and then kind of relaxed a little bit. And that happens to teams.
I'm telling you, man, Kentucky is right.
And Arkansas is pretty good up front. They are.
If you had to pick one element that they are okay, it's up front. It's probably up front
on defense.
Vanderbilt wins 31-27 over Tennessee State. Tennessee State player goes down with a severe injury, and I still haven't heard.
He wasn't even the only one. Georgia high school player died this weekend from a head injury, and he's from Atlanta the same way as the guy for Tennessee State was. So
tough deal.
I think both of them were due to head injuries. They said that the Tennessee State guy went in a concussion protocol and was kind of walking off and just collapsed. So
they had to have emergency surgery, and I think he's still in critical condition.
Brain swelling.
So, but it's gone down.
Yeah.
But in critical condition still. So we'll try to obviously monitor that. It doesn't matter, who it is or what team they play for when that kind of stuff happens. It's terrible. So one of the things about college football and little league football and high school football and pro football, all of them, every level, they're trying to do everything they can to make it. But here's the deal about football, and I'm not going to get into this because we ain't got enough time. Going in, it's a physical sport. It is a contact sport. There's a reason you wear a helmet, shoulder pads, and pads on your body. It's because you know that it's very, very physical. And the way athletes are built now, it's a lot different than it was 30, 40, 50 years ago.
That and the game's just faster.
And it's a lot faster.
The guys fly around the field.
Faster.
And you've got more space, too. If you think about football used to be played I formation. Everybody was jumbled up. There wasn't as much room.
Just a lot of pushing up around each other.
And now, you've got guys in space. You got guys coming full speed, colliding, heads colliding. So
it's rough, man.
It's a tough deal. And, the game's getting – they're trying to make it safer. They're improving helmets. They're improving. It ain't got nothing to do with that. It's just got to do with athletes are better and the game is different.
Stronger. So, final segment of the Auburn Blitz coming your way right after this. It's on kickoff last night. I was watching Braden and them go down and. It's just physical, man.
That's why they're trying to get rid of kickoffs.
I know it.
I don't think you can ever, to me, you can't just get rid of kickoffs, but they're doing, they are taking, Well,
they're making it where it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
They're moving the ball so
I don't
far
100% agree with the fair catching and you get the ball in the 25 thing. I don't really like that. I say you just move the kickoffs back where they were, which is the 40-yard line. That's where they were 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And then they started moving them back because they wanted the return game. Now they're wanting to get the return out of it completely. So I say move it back up to the 40, move NFL kickoffs up to the 35. I can't remember if they've already been moved up or not, but I think they're still kicking from the 30.
Yeah.
And that's how you get rid of them. And if it doesn't go out, then, there's maybe 2 out of every 10 will get returned if you do that.
That's right.
So
but that's an
either
exciting,
that or just start with
that's an exciting part of the game.
No, it is.
It's kick return.
And it changed the game for Texas A&M this past week. So, you can't just get rid of that.
That's what I'm saying. You can't. What if they just got the ball to start at 25 for the game? Everybody trots out there. And
then, it almost changed the TCU-Ohio State game when they ran that play where the guy hid in the end zone. If they don't throw it forward, then they have a touchdown. That's a different ball game. They're sitting there with a loss right now. I'll tell you one thing I'm getting tired of, though, is seeing Big Ten people on Twitter acting like going to Penn State and going to Michigan and all these places are so much tougher than going to these SEC play. You go to LSU at night. You go to Jordan-Hare. We saw last year.
They're going to say they've been saying that for years, and that you'll never change their mind because they have their mind made up that they're the best conference, and they don't want to look at how many national championships the SEC's won in the last 20 years versus what they've won.
I would like to see an SEC school schedule a home and home and do. Y'all come down here in September, and we'll go up there in November.
Yeah.
And we'll see.
That's right.
I'd like to see that because all they talk about is who couldn't come up here and play in the cold. You can't come down here and play in the humidity.
That's right.
You wouldn't be able to handle it. You see in the NFL.
I mean, Washington, and I know they're not Big Ten, they're in the Pac-12, but Washington was whining like they were going to open the top on the Mercedes Dome, and we ain't going to come down there unless they close the top. I'm like, well, man, that just tells me right there you don't want to play in the heat. So
you're beat.
That's right.
If you're worrying about all that, you're beat.
Yeah, this Peachy said the same thing you said. Welcome back, everyone. Final segment here on the Auburn Blitz. This segment brought to you by Hamilton's and Exquisite Dining down in Auburn. If you haven't been to Hamilton's, you need to go check them out down there. Peachy said Herb Street and other guys on the call kept saying that Happy Valley was the toughest place in the country to play. Are you kidding? Well, it obviously wasn't real tough for Ohio State.
Well, see, they don't ever get to go do the LSU games at night because those are always on CBS.
That's exactly right.
So they ain't never been there before and seen they. I mean, and I don't know. I guess I would put Jordan Hare. I mean, look at what Auburn was able to do at home last year.
That's what I'm saying.
At Jordan Hare.
Two number ones in a row.
Exactly.
I mean,
and that place was electric.
Ohio State went in with a team that could easily have a loss already, and went into Penn State and watched Penn State once again blow a lead.
Yeah, Ohio State didn't win. I mean, they came back, and that's great and all. We're talking about a team that went to overtime with Appalachian State at the same place that Ohio State. Now, I understand different circumstances, different electricity in the crowd.
This is a first for me, Caleb. Somebody commented on my Facebook. Exactly. I commented on the show, so that's weird. So somebody out there is logged on in our group on my Facebook page. Anyway, that's kind of scary. So, but anyway,
weird.
I didn't type it. I promise you saw me. I'm not typing. So, I agree with you, Brett. Whoever that is, exactly. So, I'm sure it's through our group. But anyway, but to me, that's a joke as far as it's saying that. But they want to build. They're trying to build up something that can be competitive with the SEC, and that's just the way it is. Look down at some things around the country. Baylor University has been served with a formal notice of allegations after the NCAA completed its investigation into the school's handling of sexual assault allegations, according to a Fort Worth Star-Telegram report. According to the Star-Telegram, the school is being cited for lack of institutional control, and former head coach Art Briles is being cited for failing to promote an atmosphere of compliance. Things just keep on getting worse.
And that right there, if you're an Ohio State fan, should make you worry because that stuff for them ain't done. The NCAA will come and they will investigate Ohio State for everything that went on. And, I mean, that was what, 3-4 years ago when all that happened?
That's it.
So
just a black cloud that continues to hang over. Clemson quarterback Trevor Lawrence returned to practice yesterday, taking every snap after having gone through concussion protocol as a result of a hard hit Saturday. Co-offensive coordinator Jeff Scott said Monday the Clemson medical staff was encouraged by Lawrence's response to the injury, and the staffers believe it could have been more of a neck strain than any significant head injury. So,
yeah, and I mean, the way that it was a freak thing, there's nothing you can do to prevent that from happening. He got tripped. He's falling forward. The other guy's trying to stop him. And so, I mean, it's just
a freak thing.
Yeah.
Justin Mosley said, shoot. That only took the NCAA like 10 years to investigate. So, I mean, I'm with you on that, Mose. Former Alabama coach. Now, this is
weird.
Would somebody just tell him that, former Alabama coach Mike Dubose accidentally shot himself in the stomach while working on his farm and was transported to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries Monday, according to the Covington County Sheriff's Office. Officials said Dubose was able to drive himself to Mazzell Memorial Hospital in Ott, located in the same southern Alabama town, at his farm, and then was airlifted about an hour away to Southeast Medical Center in Dothan. So, man.
Yeah, I actually met Mike Dubose when I was down at LBW. I went to an Ott basketball game, and he was sat right by me. So,
really?
Yeah, he's a good guy, but hate that for him,
Golly, man.
That had to just – I don't – from what I read, I think it said he was cleaning his gun maybe and shot himself.
That happens a lot, man.
Yeah.
When people – you hear that so many times when people get shot, it's from a situation of where they have, a gun that they think's empty and they're cleaning it and the gun fires. So can't ever be careful enough around a firearm.
I'm glad that it was non-life threatening to him because he could have easily shot himself in a bad spot
and bled out.
Exactly.
So Peaches said, so there's still hope to maybe investigate T-Town menwear and stick some stuff. So it could still be out there. Now, I think that ship's probably sailed, but Mosley said never happened, Peaches. Never happened. So a lot of things in college athletics that you can go back to and look at. And I think definitely there was some maybe some smoke around all that stuff. But anyway, NCAA picks and chooses on what they want to stay on and what they don't. Some things get zero attention. Other things, it's like you can't ever get them to leave. So you don't ever want them on your campus, that's for sure, sniffing around. But Auburn, Mississippi State, we'll be talking about them the rest of the week here on the Auburn Blitz. And this Mississippi State team comes limping in. A lot of people already upset with the head coach, upset with the way this team's playing over there. I mean,
it ain't got nothing to do with the head coach. It's got to do with who they have taking snaps at quarterback. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
The head coach is good. I mean, you've seen Penn State's kind of feeling the effects of him leaving. Penn State with their offense.
Yeah, I mean, definitely see some – I mean, Saquon Barkley can leave too, so you can add all that together. But Mississippi State's got a backed-in rattlesnake mentality into a corner, and Auburn's going into their place at night, so they've got to be prepared and all that. Speaking of snakes, Mosley said he had a pistol in his belt for snakes while riding his mower. Haven't seen many snakes climb mowers, but maybe. I mean, a lot of people carry guns this time of year on farms because, I mean, my Lord, it still feels like it's middle of summer and snakes are crawling, and you gotta watch what you're doing. But anyway, Mississippi State, I'm not saying that they're out of it already, but a loss to Auburn pretty much puts them way out of anything.
Especially when you look ahead and they still do have to play Alabama and they do have to play Texas A&M.
That's right.
As well.
That's right. So
I think they go to Texas A&M also.
So Peaches said, when does Bama Blitz, sponsored by T-Town Menswear, start? Bama Blitz starts today. Hey, look, if T-Town Menswear wants to sponsor Bama Blitz, might want to make a call. So, our very own Luke Robinson and Caleb Brooks here will be on the Bama Blitz tonight at 5:30. It'll be the first episode of the Bama Blitz.
Exclusively on Facebook Live.
Yeah, it's on Facebook Live tonight. So on 5:30 on the Sports Blitz page. So we want you to tune in there and check that out as Luke and Caleb. I might get a chance to comment on Bama Blitz like Luke comments on almost every one of our Auburn Blitz shows. But anyway, it'll be fun. I'm excited for you guys, excited to add that to what we do here and hopefully move that more into a daily show instead of just once a week. So we've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
I got Luke this morning. He said, well, we can't get a 5-day-a-week show like our Auburn. I'm like, come on, man. If it helps when you're here 5 days a week. If you can be here 5 days a week, we'll let you guys start being on the air 5 days a week. How about that? That's going to wrap it up here for the Auburn Blitz on this Tuesday. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of great comments as always. Thanks for tuning in on 105.1 The Lake and Charter Channel 3. And obviously all of our Facebook viewers are able to comment throughout the show what makes the show so much fun. And we'll be back with you tomorrow. And Andy will be back and we'll be breaking down more of the game with Auburn, Mississippi State coming up this weekend in Starkville. Caleb and Luke again on the Bama Blitz tonight, 5:30 on Sports Blitz Live page on Facebook. Make sure you tune them in. For Caleb Brooks, I'm Brett Pritchard saying we've enjoyed it. We hope you see you next time.